I think a lot of our intuition is based on thinking of nature as having a kind of continuous character. So if you take a pencil and you bend it slightly, it bends. You push a little bit harder and it bends a bit further. There's a direct link between what you do and what you get out. There's a cause and effect relationship. So small causes should have small effects, big causes have big effects. But what crises are, and what science has realized, is that the world is kind of full of systems that don't work that way. So your pencil, if you bend it far enough, will suddenly and abruptly snap. So it goes into a total different regime of behavior.
An example, you have a piece of ice, you start heating it up, you hit 0 degrees Celsius, and suddenly the ice becomes water.
Well, I think the best metaphor, perhaps, is that of the avalanche. The idea that there may be a point at which there is an abrupt change in social systems, so that, say, a social movement occurs.
And so in social networks, for example, you might have 5 friends, but each of them also has 5 friends, and each of them has 5 friends. And so you can reach a critical point where when one person changes their behavior, it can spread to thousands of other people in a network.
In epidemiology, for instance, this is related to the concept of epidemic threshold and the fact that if the disease has enough spreading velocity, it can pervade the entire system, even if you just insert a few infected individuals.
Let's consider, for example, a lake, a pristine lake with lots of species, clean waters, high diversity, and so on. Imagine now that we increase nitrogen in this lake. At the beginning, nothing happens. We keep introducing more and more nitrogen, and it seems that this doesn't affect the lake. However, once we reach a critical point, slight increase in the amount of nitrogen is going to change completely the state. We'll move from that pristine lake to one characterized by a much lower diversity of species, turbid waters, dominance of a few species. There's been a huge transition.
In the case of lakes, we've seen that they can tip from a clear to a turbid state, for instance. But the latest thing that we're working on now is the onset of migraine attacks, which are also critical transitions, but in the brain tissue.
One of the biggest surprises to me was the absence of critical points and absence of sudden transitions in complex systems. Much of the hypothesis of early network theory was that networks emerge through a sudden network transition, that is the sudden phase transition, in which nodes that previously were disconnected suddenly become connected. What we learned in the last decade is that's not the case. Rather, networks emerge through gradual addition of nodes and links, and there is no magical moment before which there is no network and after which there is a network.
Well, in the case of language, you'll sometimes have catastrophes that language is disappearing or that new languages are forming because of populations coming together, like in Creole languages. But in general, in language, there's a very slow, not so slow, but there is a continuous adaptation in order to deal with gaps that occur in the language.
There are many examples of the collapse of many civilizations that were abrupt in the sense that over the many centuries over which we study them, a very short period of time occurred during which they moved from one state to the other.
One of the challenges we are facing right now in relation to global change is trying to anticipate the existence of these critical points before they are reached.